our agreement between myself and the ET was that at 9:30, if you can do something, that would be great, at like 9:30 p.m. So what happened is then the ship appeared, and it kept blinking off and on and kind of circling us, and then finally it went away. So I'm like, wow, I guess I wasn't really imagining this whole thing. So that was kind of my formal launch into the whole CSETI experience, CE5 experience.
Known as the photographer who took the well-known photo of Bijou in Joshua Tree, Raven Nabulsi was one of the CE5 ambassadors featured in Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, a film about humans initiating contact with extraterrestrial beings through some simple protocols that anyone can do. Raven has been on dozens of CE5 training expeditions with CSETI, and she has a unique perspective as someone who has seen how ET contact has evolved over the years. And having taken some amazing photos, she also shares about her experiences with photography in this context. I hope you enjoy listening to our conversation. Okay, well, thank you, Raven, for joining me today, and I'm really excited to have you here. It's been a while since we've seen each other. I remember we met at an expedition it was about 10 years ago, actually.
Yeah.
So just to get started, I would like to have you share just a bit of your background and maybe how you, maybe like where your interest in ET contact first appeared in your life.
Sure. Well, as a child, I had some kind of amazing experiences, probably starting around the age of 7. One night, my mom woke me up and there was an orange disc floating right above our backyard. And we lived in it was a populated area, so it was kind of amazing, but I ran and hid under my covers because it was kind of, who knows what to expect, but it was pretty amazing. And then that was kind of a starting point. And then it just went from there. Like I'd say almost every year I'd have some kind of experience where I'd see a disc like fairly close, close proximity. And then, I kind of forgot about it. And around 1998, some friends of mine were going to see Dr. Greer speak at a local MUFON event, and it happened to be in Costa Mesa, California, where I was living at the time. So they invited me and they said, "You've got to listen to this guy. He's really on to something." So I had kind of shied away from a lot of the UFO and ET research out there. It seemed kind of negative, some of it, and it didn't really resonate with what I personally believed and had experienced. So I went in with an open mind, but after I heard him speak, I thought, wow, this is kind of more in alignment of what I thought ET contact was. So I really appreciated it. And then one of the people that invited me didn't tell me, but she signed us both up for like his next expedition. So that was kind of a surprise. And I wasn't, I didn't know what to expect, but we went to Sedona, Arizona, and it was an amazing week. So, I thought there's going to be all these strange people and I was going to kill her for doing that. But once I was there, it was really an amazing experience. And actually, one of the amazing things that happened when I was a child, I kind of had this familiarity with this ET that visited me one day in my bedroom. And he only appeared as a blue light, so I never really saw his physical form. But he kind of would show up in different points in time, maybe when I needed help or something. So anyway, on the last night of that Sedona trip, I kind of went into a really deep meditation, and I could physically feel that I was in two places at once. One in the chair in the field, and secondly, I was on board this craft, and I saw this ET, which I realized was this being that had been visiting me for many years. And he showed me, like, it looked like a giant dashboard with nothing on it except a little hand plate that only had space for 4 fingers. And he said, you just put your hand in that plate and decide where you want to go. And that's how we propel the ship. So that's what I did. And I basically could see all these, it was just like light out in space. It wasn't really like what you see, like blackness. It looked like just beautiful light. And so finally I said, well, I really do need to get back to my chair. So I said, if there's anything you can do to just verify, that you're here, that would be great. So I I clearly then felt myself being conscious back in my chair. And so once we all came out of meditation, I explained what happened. And Dr. Greer said, actually, they recovered plates like that when they recovered some down spacecraft. So he thought it was, a pretty real experience. And then uh, our agreement between myself and the ET was that at 9:30, if you can do something, that would be great, at like 9:30 p.m. So what happened is then the ship appeared, and it kept blinking off and on and kind of circling at us. And then finally it went away. So I'm like, wow, I guess I wasn't really imagining this whole thing. So that was kind of my formal launch into the whole CSETI experience, CE5 experience. And then after that, I just tried to go on as many as possible. So, I mean, probably I've kind of lost count, but I'm sure it's at least 40 expeditions maybe I've been on. So it's been a few.
Yeah, and some of your experiences are recounted in the book that was published in, I think it was 2009, Contact Countdown to Transformation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just been, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, sorry. Well, just reading that book was what like really turned me on to this whole thing. So yeah, there's just so much in there that's like mind-boggling.
I know it's, some of the contact is very subtle. I didn't know what to expect the first time, being with a group of people. I only knew from my personal experience what I've experienced, but you have to pay attention because sometimes it's very subtle and fast, but things are happening around you. And part of doing the meditation helps to increase your conscious awareness. So you do sort of have that extra vision to see, what's going on around you. And I mean, just so many things have happened just besides just like lights in the sky or seeing an actual craft. I mean, we've had ETs on the ground where, they poke you on the shoulder, or you can hear them walking around, or just, they use the electronics that we have to detect things to help communicate with us. So
yeah, and with the electronics, you were telling me earlier that that you were kind of there when they first started interacting with the electronics more on a communicative level.
yeah, I mean, for many years we would usually have like some kind of radar detector with us, and we did have some magnetometers, and maybe once in a while something would beep, and we'd see a ship, or something would happen. But I think it was around 2009 or 10, somewhere between 9 and 10, something happened where suddenly that level of contact just expedited, I guess. And it's like the ETs were using it as to talk, a way to talk to us. So if, we'd ask a question, or Dr. Greer would be talking about something as a confirmation, that magnetometer would beep like once. Sometimes it would even laugh. Like if everybody was laughing, it might, go beep, beep, beep. So it's kind of funny. And the other odd thing was some of the signals actually coming from the magnetometer are, I'm sorry, excuse me, not the magnetometer, but the radar detector, which rarely ever went off. started doing this whole sequence of strange like patterns. And, we contacted the manufacturer and said, does it normally do these, sound patterns? And they said, no, I mean, we've never even heard of that. So it was definitely, something outside of the machine itself was creating this that's normally it doesn't occur. So it's just kind of, gone from there. It seems like every so often there's sort of a jump in, it's sort of like, I guess, it's evolving the contact, because even though we're trying to communicate with them, they're trying to communicate with us. So I think maybe we reach a point where we are sort of collectively at this, a certain level, and then it kind of moves to the next level of communication. So that's kind of how I see it. So
Yeah, when did that did you were you there for the Orion transmissions?
yes, yeah, that was amazing, because we were basically ending our evening out in the field, which was probably somewhere around 1 a.m, and we started seeing all these, we call them flash bulbs, like these flashes of light coming out of the Orion constellation. And I remember Dr. Greer had some kind of a crystal he was holding up, and he kind of turned it a certain way, and then this is what started this sequence of sounds coming out of the radar detector, and then the magnetometers were going off. So it went on and on and on, like for probably 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And what it felt like, some kind of download of information. Like it's hard to explain exactly what happened, but just, some sort of information was transferred, and it's in there somewhere subconsciously. I don't know exactly what the message was, but it definitely felt like they were downloading something into all of us that were there. So it's, since that point in time, there seems to be a lot of activity around that particular constellation in that area. Maybe it's some kind of a portal or something. So um, it's it's very interesting. I mean, it's happened in other situations as well, but for some reason, that whole thing with Orion seems to be like a hotspot.
Yeah, it seems like yeah, that kind of the whole event was recounted in the book as well.
Hmm.
And I've been in groups since then where we experience a similar kind of thing where um, the devices are going on kind of like at a steady level, and there's kind of it feels like there's this kind of stream. There's like something going on where we're kind of radio transmitters, like um,
Right.
receiving information or like transmuting it in some way.
Hmm. I think another thing too, there's something really magical about Joshua Tree, and
Mm.
that's actually where we were during in Joshua Tree, California, where the Orion transmissions started. We got some messages that there's something about the Joshua trees themselves that are some kind of star. They're like transmitters. They have all these little needles on them, and they collect information. So maybe there is something special about that place as well. So
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
I,
So yeah, as a special place, it was also where you. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off if you were going to say
no,
something.
no, I was going to talk about that.
Yeah. So this is where you took a really special photograph, right?
Right. That happened in 2009, and
Hmm.
it was in November. And we had the whole day started off, with things happening starting in the morning. We were sharing a house, about 5 or 6 of us, and some people were still asleep. So we were, a few of the ladies and myself were just talking quietly amongst ourselves. And then we heard like some other little voices chiming in on our conversation that were not human. And so, we were like, did you hear that? Who is that? So something was going on, and then it just kept building throughout the day. And that evening, when we got in the car to go out in the field, the the lights on the truck went on and off by themselves. It went like, everything shut down like an alternator or something, and then it came back on.
Hmm.
And then we went out to the field, and we did our meditation, and we saw, some lights, and we could hear voices. There were clearly voices beyond our own that were out there that were not human voices. So we had been meditating and doing our thing for a while. So Dr. Greer said, let's get up and, go out to where we heard these sounds. So we got up, and the break was coming to an end. So I went back to my seat, and we had about, I'd say about 40 people that were set up with chairs, but only myself and another person had come back to the circle. And part of my experience, what I do is I like to take pictures. So I sort of just close my eyes and just point my camera in random directions to see what comes up. And so I wasn't really paying attention, and it was like pitch black out there, like nobody had lights on or anything like that. And I had no flash on. And when I put the pictures, downloaded them later, I saw this little being floating above one of the chairs. And so I showed Dr. Greer, and of course he got really excited. And we had actually seen some orbs as well in the area where we heard the voices. So it kind of looks like there was an orb shining a light onto this being, which we named Bijou. That was kind of the name that was given to him, that we heard was his name. So, it caused a lot of controversy. So I wanted to make sure, I like to check myself, make sure like, okay, nobody was there, nobody was flashing a light on, or there wasn't a tree. So I went back during the day and took a bunch of photos, and there was absolutely like nothing behind that chair. It was just open space, just open desert space. And we even tried some experiments, like if somebody did have a flashlight, what it would look like. And it's not even the same. I mean, it was clearly something anomalous. So, he's kind of shown up on some other expeditions as well. Just energetically, he's there. And so I haven't talked to him recently, but it's, his presence comes and goes, I'd say.
And well, yeah, now since the movie Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, a lot of people can see that image and kind of relive that experience through your telling and some of the people that were there.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite amazing. It was kind of shocking. And since then, I mean, I know there's been some other amazing photos. There was a gentleman named Ed Moan, I think, that had the ET helping him with his hearing. And,
Mm-hmm.
they're obviously there. It's just, that lucky moment that you get to, by chance take a picture or something to kind of prove your point. It's, I'm really grateful for that.
Mm. So with photography and CE5, you have some experience with that. I know one thing that is good to do is to always keep the flash off when you're taking photographs at night. And reasons for that are so that you don't like blind everybody with a big flash of light. Another one is that flashes that when you shine a light like that, it can actually create artifacts that in the photographs that you think like, oh, maybe that's something, but it's just a speck of dust or
Exactly.
moisture or a moth or something like that. Do you have
hmm
any other tips for how to like kind of maybe I guess take photographs in that kind of mindful state?
I mean, what I do personally is just, just sort of close my eyes and just sort of allow myself to freely move, like my hands to move to wherever and point in a certain direction. I'm really not even looking.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just sort of letting it be this free form, sort of a moving meditation to see what happens. And you know, in that particular photograph, I had kind of an older, it was like I think a 6 megapixel camera,
Mm.
but it has that particular, it was like a Fuji camera. It had a very sensitive, the light sensor inside, I guess, was very sensitive. So I think that's the only reason why maybe I was able to pick that up, because otherwise it's, you know, not a great camera. But you know, using that's principle, I just sort of randomly just shoot in different directions, and then I go back and check and see. And I'm almost every time I've done that, I've something's happened. Like I've seen there's something that's shown up in my photography.
Mm.
There was another instance in broad daylight. We were in the Outer Banks in North Carolina,
Mhm.
and actually, I was trying to use the CE5 techniques to call some dolphins, because everyone was seeing dolphins right there on the coast, and I wasn't seeing anything. So I try to call them, you know, using the CE5 techniques. And I opened my eyes, and there were like 10 dolphins not that far from where I was standing. I was on, you know, on the beach. And so but I was kind of already in that sort of zone, we'll say. So I just started shooting my camera, you know, pointing in different directions of the sky, and actually got a picture of it was a fully materialized silver disc right over the ocean.
Mm.
And I took two shots, and, you know, like click, click. And the second one, it was like a little pinpoint. It had already moved so fast in, you know, quite a distance in that short period of time. So it's happened in England and a couple other places. So it's, you know, it's something maybe the sort of you entrain the technology to work for you.
Mhm.
That's kind of how I see it. So just like the ETs are using the magnetometers, I think I can use my camera to do the same thing, to communicate something.
And I know some other people like bring out a camera and they just keep it on a tripod and kind of have it
Hmm.
on an automatic shutter where it'll go and it either pointed at the sky or pointed at the group or something like
Hmm.
that. And there's also some amazing stuff that comes out of those photographs as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good way to do it too, because, you know, sometimes for meditating, or, you know, you're not always looking, you can't obviously look in all directions, but that way you get a full view of the sky. Because there's so much going on.
Yeah. Do you have any other really standout experiences that you want to talk
Um,
about?
you know, I think another time, again in Joshua Tree, it, we were in our circle, and a ship flew over us. I mean, I almost could feel the whoosh of the air overhead, and it made this very strange sound that it was some combination of, like, you know, those sprinklers that you put on automatic that go that go around
Yeah.
with this sound. Like it was like a very strange combination of noises, but the ship passed like right overhead. And what preceded it was this bird came out of nowhere. It looked like a huge hawk or something. And again, it was just slightly after twilight. I mean, there's still a tiny bit of light, so you could see this, like the bird moving around, and it made a circle. It flew right around us, like in a circle, and disappeared. And then it's just like shortly after this ship came over, we couldn't necessarily see it, but the sound was like, I mean, it was very undeniable that there was something flying over us at a very low altitude. And then, of course, like there was, you know, so much phenomenon that happened after that. In fact, we actually had a couple F-16s, like fighter jets, fly over right after. So they must have picked up something on their end that made them fly like right over our group.
Mm.
So, and it's weird because, I mean, it's a national park and you're out in the middle of nowhere. So to have like military jets fly over, it's, it's very interesting. And it's happened quite a few occasions when we've had some kind of intense contact going on, or we've, had a lot of visible flyovers of ships. Like we will see often like military jets being dispatched to our area.
Yeah, so these, I mean, I guess the idea around that is that there's these unacknowledged special access projects that have access to um, tools that can detect when these craft might be nearby or appearing. So they'll respond.
Yes, exactly. And I think, if they're taking a big risk, meaning the ETs to, come all the way here into our airspace, and which isn't very friendly at the moment. So, to even just come, even if they were sort of cloaking themselves and then physically manifesting for those, couple of minutes, they're easily picked up on radar. So they're taking a huge risk to, come here and try to make contact with us. So, um, it's a little scary sometimes when you actually see some military response because, obviously you don't want anything to happen, but
Mhm.
sometimes I think it's more a show of force, but still, I mean, it's happened quite a few times, and I mean, in Mount Shasta, and in the desert, in Joshua Tree. I mean, we've had it happen on multiple occasions.
Yeah, I remember the first time I went to Mount Shasta on an expedition. There was at some point. This is kind of also before it was completely dark, so you could actually see the thing. It was a big helicopter
Hmm.
that flew like actually quite close to where we were. But yeah, it just right through. It's like, what are they doing there? Like
Right.
up at Mount Shasta, like so close to the ground actually, because they weren't that high up, but it was
Hmm.
quite loud, like super loud.
Yeah. Yeah, it's there's something going on there too
Mm.
because I've been on a few trips to that location, and I mean we've actually had people in the forest like around us. We a couple of the guys in our group had night vision goggles, and they could see like they're looking at us, we're looking at them,
Hmm.
like, and they're, they were in the woods like spying on us. So,
Hmm.
in full like camouflage and the whole thing. So it's kind of it's kind of, strange, but we just carry on. And that's another thing that I've happened quite a few times. We've been in different locations, and there's like somebody will come out of nowhere, like we don't even know like how they find us, where they come from, and will suddenly start you know pretending like they're drunk, or maybe they are drunk and they're like screaming and carrying on. And it's just odd, like how it seems kind of coincidental. It's happened so many times, that it's not just random things, people just showing up. I mean, it seems very purposeful to be disruptive, what we're doing, but you have to keep going.
Yeah, and I think just so that like these stories don't like scare anybody off from actually trying to do this, I think a lot of that is like there's always monitoring happening around Dr. Greer. Um,
Yes.
so that's one thing, but also like if I mean, there's no way if there are like thousands and thousands of people doing this around the world, there's no way that everything's going to be interrupted and
It's impossible, that, and you're right. I didn't mean to go off on a tangent there,
oh
but
no, it's
um, the reality is a lot of that is related to him,
mhm,
as far as the monitoring, because he's doing things that are bypassing their whole system, which is great. But as far as we're concerned, I mean, they don't have thousands of people to monitor everybody, and people all over the planet now are making peaceful contact, and it's really an amazing phenomenon, actually. So, the more people that can get together and do that, I've gone out in smaller groups, and I'm sure you have too. And there's, you know, many things have happened just in a small group of like 4 to 6 people, and there's no military people or anybody coming, so it's nothing to worry about.
Mhm.
you know um, so that's for sure. I mean, I think the more people that can get on board to do this, we really will make a difference. That 1% that he talks about, as far as making a huge conscious shift in the world. I really think we're getting closer by doing what we're doing. So
Yeah, I think there's almost like a kind of a serendipity, or like a kind of, it feels like there's kind of a blessing, or like some kind of protection on anybody who does want to do this, that there's it's like now's the time. And um it's, I don't know, it's incredibly powerful, I think. Do you have any other um tips or insights for anybody who's just getting interested in this, or kind of just heard about it?
you know what, I think it's good to if they're around people that, or they can download the app, because it is very self-explanatory. There's a CE5 app, or even just to like watch the movie and see what people are doing, and get together with some friends. I mean, really, like, if you want to simplify everything, I kind of imagine what we're doing sort of like, if people are familiar with Google Earth, where you sort of zoom in and zoom out from where you're at. That's kind of what you're doing in your mind, in a way. So you see your starting point where you're at, and then just put your consciousness further and further out from that place. So, and imagine yourself looking down on yourself from above, and that's kind of the image you project out into space. Um, and invariably things start happening. It's you're really fundamentally expanding your consciousness, no matter what you're doing. Even if you're not contacting ETs, you're kind of expanding your own consciousness. um, so it's not just confined in your body anymore. You realize, like, it's so much more. There's so much more out there beyond you. You become really infinite when you're in that state of mind. And I mean, just from that aspect alone, even if you're not seeing anything else, I mean, you're sort of furthering your own, conscious awareness, or your own spiritual studies, however you want to see it. But there are benefits to that, and part of it is the ability to be able to make that contact. It also creates more awareness of everything else in your life as well. It's just not confined to that. So I think, you know it's hard to meditate. I mean, honestly, I'm kind of bad at it. I do my meditation sometimes through walking, or in a forest. I mean, that kind of clears my mind and helps me not have a lot of thoughts. Meditating sometimes seems like a little intimidating for people, because it seems like you have to just sit for long periods of time and not move. But really, it's just quieting your mind. I mean, real meditation is just sort of not having thoughts anymore. It's just sort of this blank open canvas, and then it's easier for things to manifest after that.
Mhm.
So, however a person feels it's easiest for them to do that, whatever technique works to just kind of quiet their mind, and then practice the protocols. Take a few friends and go somewhere quiet and do it. Even if you can't go outside, just even at home, you can have experiences in a room. We've had experiences, when we were at that conference in 2011. I mean, in a room with a bunch of people. We didn't have to be outside.
In a hotel
So,
building.
yeah, in the middle of a busy city. So,
Hmm.
that's the beauty of doing the work, because you can be anywhere, really.
Yeah, there's really, I think a lot of people get hung up on like, oh, I need to like go to an official training or something like that, or like we need Dr. Greer because he's the one that started all of this. But it's like really like he's trying to make this as decentralized as possible, trying, and that's what I'm doing as well. I'm trying to teach as many people as I can through
Hmm.
this podcast, and try and reach people so that it's like you can actually do this. All the resources are available, like to teach yourself. Um, just
Absolutely.
using the stuff I put out and the books and stuff that Dr. Greer's put out in the films and all the talks. And there's just so many resources. The app itself is just, I mean, is amazing. You could just get this little app and then have some experiences that there's no way you can, there's no way you'll be able to explain to yourself what you're experiencing as being like a figment of your imagination. Because I mean, if you ask for confirmation, they'll, oftentimes they'll try to give it to you, whether
Absolutely.
it's something physically manifesting or some kind of interaction with an electronic device that wouldn't like. The one thing I recommend is people keep their phones off, or and try and be away from other electronics that might set off a detector or that kind of thing. But it's
Hmm.
like, yeah, once you it's like when if you go out like and you're with someone you trust, or you're just out on your own and you have a device that can receive, or that can like make noise, like um and you know that you don't have any electronics that are around you to set it off, like that's huge. It's like like
Absolutely.
yeah.
What's an interesting thing too is, most of these expeditions have at least 25. Previously, the groups used to be much bigger, like sometimes up to 50 people. And, it's harder for 50 people to kind of sync up and
Mhm.
be coherent together. But if you're, with a couple of friends, or somebody, people that you care about in a small group, you're actually your experiences will be much more intimate and amazing because you're more in sync because you already know each other. So I think that's kind of an important factor too. It's actually harder to go out in a huge group and be with Dr. Greer and everybody else because he's trying to teach everyone and get everyone quieted down. But if you just go out with your friends or a few people, it's actually quite amazing. I mean, and if you have the opportunity to do it on a kind of a regular basis, I think that amplifies, the experiences that you're going to have. Like it'll start building. It's hard to explain, but they almost kind of build on top of each other in a certain way, especially when you do it kind of frequently. So it's it's something that must be you just must do it. It must be done. So I highly recommend it. And even if you don't think you're experiencing anything or you think it's your imagination, do little things to kind of check yourself, like try to check all the facts. Sometimes imagination is one part of it to begin with, especially when you aren't sure of if you're really experiencing something, but then ask the ETs to kind of confirm something for you. I remember I wasn't at this particular event, but there was a person there who kind of felt like he was being left out and he wasn't experiencing anything. So he sort of put it out there. Well, if you can just confirm with me, ETs, can you just, block out the stars in the Big Dipper? And it actually happened. Like everyone saw it, not just him, like everyone saw, each of the points of starlight go out in one, in a sequence. So he was like, okay, I get it. It's really happening. So, ask them to do things. Or if you see a light, we've seen things that look maybe like a satellite, and then we'll ask it, if try to connect with it, and sometimes it stops and then like reverses direction. So, there's little things you can do to ask to see if they can help you in your experience. Because one thing to think about also is that, they're kind of learning on their end too with humans, how to make this all work. It's not like they've got it all figured out and I think this is sort of a co-creative experience. So, you know, that's just something to keep in mind.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for all of your insight and your perspective, and for being willing to share it with everybody.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I hope, whatever, if anybody, wants to do this, they should just go out and do it and have the experience. I think it's very important.
Thanks for being here. I'm Andre Cardoso, the host of the show, and I've had these most recent episodes in waiting for some time now, so I'm so happy to finally get them out to you. I wanted to remind you that in June 2023, you should check out Dr. Stephen Greer's Historic Disclosure Conference, a new National Press Club event happening in Washington, D.C., and streaming online. That weekend will include the premiere of the new documentary film, The Lost Century, all about breakthrough zero-point energy technologies, their suppression, and their potential. That's happening from the 10th through the 12th of June, and more information is available at the links in the show notes. And for even more episodes and resources to help you along your own CE5 journey, check out those links in the show notes and head to ce5podcast.com. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace and love.